Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of How I Conquered Cancer and Beyond. Today, I will be interviewing Laura Wilson, who will be joining us over Zoom from Flagstaff. She lives there with her family, where she works as a speech and language pathologist. She's a wife and a mother of 4 children, now all in high school or college. She was diagnosed in 2013 with stage 4 metastatic nasopharyngeal cancer and underwent 2 different rounds of chemotherapy and 7 weeks of head and neck radiation. Her book, Strength to Run: Hope and Strength in the Race of Suffering, tells her cancer story of faith in the hard things of life. And I'm very honored to be sharing the stage with her on March 22nd, where we'll all be sharing our cancer stories. Welcome, Laura. And I'm so excited that you could join me here from Flagstaff today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Is it snowing there?
No snow. It's actually very sunny today, so warm for us for the beginning of March. I think
That's
it's supposed to be clear all week. So
perfect. I'm so excited, Laura, that I get to share the stage with you at a second act on March 22nd, where we get to tell our story.
yes.
And you have such an amazing story. So I would love for you to share that with our viewers. Let's talk a little bit about what age you were when you got diagnosed, what kind of cancer you went through, and the treatments.
Okay. Um, let's see. I have to do a little math. It was 2013, and so I was 45. And my type of cancer is called nasopharyngeal cancer. Some people say pharyngeal. And it was stage 4 and metastatic. So it was a very scary diagnosis, and it was very aggressively growing, although I didn't know I had it, and I didn't have any symptoms originally.
Wow. So what kind of treatment did you have to go through for this?
So I had to do 2 different rounds of chemotherapy at 2 different points over the course of a year. And then I also had to do the really aggressive radiation treatment for head and neck cancer. So I had 7 weeks, so 35 days of radiation to the head and neck.
Oh my gosh, I just can't even imagine what that must have been like, because I never had radiation, but I know the chemo treatments are not easy. And on top of that, having the radiation must have been such a tough time for you in your life. How did how did your family take that news? How did you guys deal with it?
Well, we have kind of a big family. We have 4 kids who at the time were 7, 10, 13, and 17. So they really all handled the news and the life changes differently, kind of based on their personality and their just how they do things. My husband became my #1 supporter, my nurse. In fact, I at the time referred to him as Nurse Mark because he just became my just helper with everything. And like I said, I didn't have symptoms at first,
Yeah.
and it was actually the treatment that caused the symptoms. So head and neck radiation therapy is really pretty brutal because all of the tissue in this area is so sensitive. And so, as you probably know, radiation essentially is kind of burning cancer cells.
Yeah.
And so, because it was aimed at areas behind my nose and throat, which is very tender, sensitive mucosal lining kind of material, it basically burned all of that tissue. And so the treatment was really hard. So after about 3 weeks, just like they predicted, there were lots of changes that were taking place, and with saliva and taste and things like that. And a couple weeks later, I had to have a feeding tube put in right into my stomach because I could no longer swallow or eat. So
Yeah.
that was really, really hard.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was like, how were you feeding yourself at that time then? It must have been so tough.
It was tough. They had warned me that at about week 4, I would probably not be able to eat. And I thought in my mind, maybe I'll be that one person, the one person who doesn't have to do that,
Yeah.
because it just sounded terrible. And so right about week 4 is when I realized eating was over, and I had to have the tube placed, which at the time I really thought was gross and I hated it and really didn't want that at all. But
Yeah. On top of what you were going through. So was the tube permanent for a while?
well, it was permanent for a while. Yeah, so it was there for several months, and thankfully so, because it really served to save my life, because I could not eat or almost even drink during that time for several months. So as much as I despised it, it actually served to preserve my life. So thankful for it in a way, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The more and more I talk to all you amazing women, it just makes me realize that, what, we all have such unique stories and we all just deal with it in such different ways. But
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, the bottom line really is the strength that we get. It's like, when you're going to become a mom, you feel like, I don't know if I'm going to do this right. I don't know, how will I know that the kid is hungry? But it's like these instincts kick in. And I think that's what happens with us as well. It's like something just comes over you where you just know what you need to do to able to save your life. And you just get the strength to do it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I agree. I think somehow this thing happens inside of you where all of a sudden you are able to get through things that you didn't think you could survive. And I was really blessed and fortunate to have just an amazing family and community and team of people, church family. Almost all of our family is here in town. And I've essentially grown up in Flagstaff. And so you just know a lot of people when you live in a small town. And the entire community practically jumped in to just get behind us and rally around us. And I became so in kind of a sick state because of all of the radiation treatment and the chemo, that I wasn't able to do a lot, and was pretty in a bad way, let's say. And so we really had just a team of people that put themselves together to help and support us. And then I think, for me, just my faith, and that's really where my strength, I think, came from.
Mhm.
Not necessarily from myself so much as my faith, for sure.
Wow. So what was your one thing or your mantra, if you will, that got you through this tough time?
Whew. Well, I think relying on my faith, and I did a lot of just really trying to uh, read scripture and listen to worship music and try to keep my eyes focused on what I was hoping the end would be. Trying to really just take, I think, each day as it came, and sometimes it literally was hour to hour when things were really intense.
Yeah.
And so um, trying not to dwell on the hard things, but I guess almost just survive them as they came.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a tough thing for us, I guess you and me at least, is that we had kids, right? When we were going through this. So just making sure that they see us and see that, what, this is not going to break us and we have to show them that we're strong. I think that just gives you that strength as well, right? To
Yeah, we really we're trying to make an effort to keep things as normal as we could for our
Yeah.
kids.
Mhm.
And although it was not normal at all, um, but still trying to make their games when I could, and to be at school things when I could, and to try to keep home life fairly normal-ish.
Yeah.
Um, and that really helped, kind of keeping the focus on them and what they needed during that time too. I think was important.
Yeah, absolutely is. Wow. So Laura, let's talk a little bit about, you know, I feel like when, when we go through these treatments and the chemo, and we have the doctors, the nurses, we have the support of everyone around us, and then all of a sudden it's like the last day of chemo, and you go to see your doctor, and he or she's like, okay, I'll see you in 6 months. Life should be back to normal, and you're like, wait, don't leave me alone. Like, I'm not coming here again to do chemo. I'm not going to see you guys. You're not going to be part of my life. And I kind of felt lost. And I just feel like that's how I think a lot of us feel. Like, it's like we're trying to figure out our new normal, our new life. Like,
Yeah,
so what went through your mind? Like, how did you figure out how to live your life again? Because obviously you were not going to be able to live life the way you were before this
right.
this this thing came along, but so how did you figure it out, and what are you doing now that you've been through this experience?
Well, I think I totally agree with that. When things come to an end, then things are supposed to go back to normal, but they're not. And a lot of us have lingering things, or changes in our body that may be permanent or weren't there before, or still have some adjusting back to normal to do. Effects of chemo take a long time to disappear. Um, I still say every once in a while that I have chemo brain, and my kids say, "No, mom, you're just getting old."
Oh my god, no, there is chemo brain.
But I think for me, health wise, the treatment was so harsh on my body that I still had a long way to go. And so I had to be followed pretty closely for quite a while after, just because of the effects of all of the
Sure.
tissue with swallowing and my mouth. And so I had a pretty long period probably of more appointments and more follow-ups after chemo was done. With radiation, it's they in fact, the book that I wrote, which I can talk about in a little bit,
Mhm.
I have a chapter called The Gift That Keeps on Giving. And radiation is kind of one of those things where the effects keep building over time. And so symptoms can actually become worse, and most often do, um, and really take a while to kind of diminish, I guess.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of a road to go, and then I ended up getting an infection and just some complications after treatment that just kind of prolonged some things. And because of the lack of eating, and the feeding tube kept me alive, but I had a long way to go to get back to eating normally again, and adjusting to a lack of saliva and taste buds being ruined, and all those things that were a little bit of a long process. Um,
Yeah.
I'm definitely in a different place now, 6 years later. So um, I think that your second question was, what what I'm kind of doing now, or after all of that is behind me.
Yes.
Um, So I would say, and I'll talk about this a little bit in our performance coming up in March,
Yeah.
the end of March, but really just how cancer, and this particular type of cancer, changed my perspective on working with the patients that I work with as a speech therapist myself. And so I'm really in a position of patient advocate, and I can really educate nurses and doctors and families, and come alongside patients in a different way than I could before. So that's really cool. And then I wrote a book.
Oh wow, what's the name of your book?
It is called Strength to Run. In fact, I have a copy right here. I can flash real quick.
All right.
There it is. Those are my feet. I'm not a runner. People always say, "Oh, you must run," and
Yeah.
um, but it really parallels the idea of running a race. Um,
Sure.
Life is kind of that way, and then going through something difficult is definitely like that. But now I'm able to use the book to um, help encourage other people going through something hard, not just cancer, but a lot of times it is cancer or
Yeah.
something where they've had a similar treatment to the head and neck that helps them relate to that better.
Yeah. So, were you a speech therapist before you were diagnosed? Was that your?
Yeah, I've been a speech therapist since 1992, and I actually specialize in swallowing disorders. And then I had my own, so that was
Oh
fun.
my gosh.
But it was good and bad because I knew a lot about swallowing,
Yeah.
but it's always different when it's yourself. And so I was aware of a lot of the things I needed to do to kind of preserve my swallow during that time, and what exercises I should do, and how important it was to drink water and force myself to swallow, even though I thought I couldn't. Um,
Yeah.
it was helpful. I had to see a speech therapist once, maybe twice, and but now I have just such a different vantage point, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been through some things that I can relate to other people about.
Yeah, and that's crazy that that's what your job was, and then you end up. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
No,
Wow.
it's ironic.
Yeah. So, are you on any kind of medication?
Not anymore. I still have kind of I would say the lingering thing for me is the damage that the radiation treatment did to my mouth and throat, and just kind of that tissue.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty harsh on that tissue. So I essentially lost function of my salivary glands for the most part, and my taste buds have completely changed. I can taste some things now, but nothing like normal, but
Yeah.
definitely better. So counting my blessings for sure. I think the lack of saliva production is a way bigger deal than one might think, just
Yeah.
for talking, sleeping, exercising. It's a constant battle, but
Yeah. You're having to relearn all the whole thing, and I'm sure it's never obviously the same, and you're going to keep learning, because I think once you go through treatments like this, it's like something or the other keeps popping up. It's not one thing, it's another, and then you've got to figure it all out all over again.
right.
And also the energy level isn't the same, and what you used to like before isn't the same. So it's like your whole world and your whole life has changed, and now you've got to go figure it out all over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel very blessed and fortunate, like I'm sure you do, to have gone through what we've been through and be on the other side of it and essentially healthy and normal. Not normal, but um, healthy.
Healthy.
And, when I look at my journey of such a severe, rare cancer, and then to be stage 4 and metastatic and on the move, and even brain side, it's pretty miraculous that I'm here. And then also the treatment, I felt like the treatment nearly killed me. And then, but it didn't. And then just some complications after that, and the battles with nutrition
Yeah.
and all of that. So definitely counting my blessings every day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, um, for me at least, like I think accepting that, okay, I have cancer, but then now preparing yourself and having the strength that I know I need to go through this to be able to stay alive, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
because if you just sat there and said, oh my God, why me, and why, then I think you kind of lose track of where you need to be. But
Mhm.
if you've accepted that, okay, this is what it is, but I have control, and keep that positive mindset, I think you already win half the battle by just having that positive mindset. And
And I think that's why the second act is such a neat thing, highlighting not just the cancer or that journey, but the after, and how having gone through something so hard impacts the person and people around them. And as you said earlier, how each one of us has such a different story, a different
yeah,
cancer, or a different situation, and how different and how just how rich it is, that how everyone responds differently, and um, there is life after cancer.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So Laura, what's the one thing you would like to you know tell someone who's maybe unfortunately starting the same journey as you? What's the one thing that you'd like to tell them?
Ooh, um, I think really taking things day by day and trying to keep your eye maybe on kind of a finish line, or a not necessarily a goal, but for me it was kind of helpful to think about, okay, I have 20 more radiation treatments left. Now I only have 17. Now I only have this. I can do this. I can do this. Um, but I really think taking it day by day, and letting people help you. I think that was a challenge for me at first.
Yeah.
Being a mother of four who likes to be doing everything.
Mhm.
Instantly, I couldn't do everything, and that was a rough little period of kind of surrendering and saying, "Okay, I need help. I can't do it." And
Right. Yeah.
we had people jumping in to do everything known to man, and oh, I'm so thankful for that. It made things so much better for my family, for me. And one thing I've learned about people helping is that if we don't let people help us when we need it, we're kind of robbing them of the gift they're trying to give. And so, um, a gift really is just accepting something from another person, um, and we all struggle with letting people help us, or admitting that we need help for some reason,
Yeah.
even when we clearly do. So I would say take it day by day, and let other people help, because
I
your
ab-
turn will come to help somebody else.
yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for joining me and sharing your story. And we can't wait to hear your story at the second act on the 22nd.
So
It's gonna be
exciting.
exciting. Yes.
Thank you so much for interviewing me.
You are so welcome.